It is week 3, you have 4 deadlines, and your syllabus reads like a legal contract written by a robot. By the end of this lesson, ChatGPT becomes the study partner that never sleeps, never judges, and never does your homework for you. Now let's dive into RCTFC, the 5 letters that fix every prompt. Here is the uncomfortable truth about ChatGPT. It is not bad at helping you. You are just bad at asking. Typing "help me study" is like walking into a library and shouting the word book. Technically a request. Practically useless. So we use RCTFC. R is role, who you want the AI to be. An academic advisor, a tutor, a writing center coach. C is context, the messy, real details of your actual situation, your class, your grade, your schedule. T is task, the one specific thing you want done. F is format, how you want it delivered, a table, a checklist, an email draft. And the final C is constraints, the rules and limits, word counts, reading level, things it must never do. Role, context, task, format, constraints. 5 ingredients. 5 ingredients, 30 extra seconds of typing, and a completely different quality of answer. Think of it as the difference between texting a stranger and briefing a colleague who genuinely wants to help you succeed. The goal here is simple. Stop reading your syllabus like a novel and start reading it like a scoreboard. Notice the structure. The role is an academic advisor, which pulls in strategic thinking instead of a plain summary. The context includes real weights and real dates, because a model cannot prioritize what it cannot see. The task is the money line, what actually drives my grade and where students lose points, which forces analysis instead of restating. The format demands a table with a risk column, so you get comparison at a glance. And the constraints: under 300 words, no jargon, brand new student, keep it readable at 11 at night when your brain is running on vending machine snacks. Now it is your turn. Pause the video and try this prompt yourself. You can copy the exact prompt from the lab guide below. If you want to skip ahead, use the chapter links at the bottom of the video or in the description. Look at what the risk column did. By asking for risk rather than a summary, you forced the model to weigh probability against consequence. Which is why those 10% discussion posts got flagged as sneaky point leaks, while the shiny final exam got labeled high effort but predictable. The specific dates let it build a timeline instead of vague advice about staying organized. And the no jargon constraint stripped out phrases like formative assessment that mean nothing to a 17-year-old. Students who prompt with grade weights included report roughly 3 times more actionable detail than students who just paste and ask for a summary. The lesson is beautifully simple. Give the model numbers, and it gives you priorities. Give it vibes, and it gives you a fortune cookie. Let us lock this in before your next tab distracts you. First, RCTFC is not a fancy trick, it is just briefing someone properly. And it works because specificity is the entire game with language models. Second, real numbers change everything, because percentages and dates let ChatGPT prioritize instead of philosophize. Third, format is where good answers become usable answers, since a table you can scan beats 3 paragraphs you will never reread. Nail those 3, and you are already prompting better than most people twice your age. Now let's dive into your week. Rebuilt. High school scheduled you. Bells, teachers, parents, a very persistent alarm clock. College hands you 35 unstructured hours a week and says, "Good luck, buddy." That is not freedom, that is a trap with a nice campus. Here is where ChatGPT is quietly brilliant. It has zero emotional attachment to your fantasy version of yourself who wakes up at 5:30 for calculus. Feed it your actual class times, your job shifts, your soccer game, and your real sleep window, and it will build the week you can live in rather than the week you can post about. The magic ingredient is constraints. If you do not cap total study hours, it will cheerfully suggest formality, and you will follow it for exactly 2 days. If you do not require a night off, you will burn out by October. So we tell it, no block longer than 90 minutes, include meals, leave one evening completely free. Realistic beats heroic every single time, and realistic is the plan you actually keep. This lab turns your chaotic week into a grid you can actually follow. Notice how much context we loaded in. Every class, every shift, the soccer game, and crucially, the sleep window. Because a schedule that ignores sleep is just a countdown to a breakdown. The role of time management coach nudges the response toward habits and protection, not just Tetris. The task asks for named blocks per course, which prevents that useless label called study time. The format is a day-by-day table, so you can screenshot it and stick it on your wall. And the constraints do the heavy lifting: 25 hours maximum, 90-minute blocks, meals included, 1 evening off. That last one is not laziness, it is maintenance. Now it is your turn. Pause the video and try this prompt yourself. You can copy the exact prompt from the lab guide below. If you want to skip ahead, use the chapter links at the bottom of the video or in the description. Watch what the constraints produced. The 90-minute cap forced natural breaks instead of a heroic 4-hour chemistry marathon that no human brain survives. Giving it your work shifts meant Tuesday and Thursday evenings vanished from the study plan automatically, so the model front-loaded those mornings instead of pretending you were available at 8 p.m. The one free evening requirement is why Friday stayed open after soccer, which is the single feature that makes people stick with a plan past week 2. And naming blocks by course turned vague intentions into appointments. Students who include their real commitments before asking for a schedule report about 70% higher follow-through than students who accept the generic template. Turns out the best schedule is not the most ambitious one. It is the one you do not quietly abandon. Time management is not about discipline, it is about design. And now you can design in 90 seconds. Load your immovable commitments first, because a plan built around reality survives contact with reality. Cap your hours and your block lengths, since your attention has a shelf life, and pretending otherwise is how burnout starts. And always demand one protected evening, because rest is not a reward you earn after perfection, it is part of the system that makes perfection unnecessary. Now let's dive into turn your notes into a quiz machine. Let us talk about the most popular study method on earth, which is also one of the least effective. Rereading your notes with a highlighter. It feels amazing. Everything looks familiar. Your notes get colorful. Your confidence soars. And then the exam asks you to actually retrieve something, and your brain returns a 404 error. Familiarity is not knowledge. Retrieval is. That is what active recall means. Forcing your brain to pull information out instead of politely pushing it back in. And ChatGPT is an absurdly good quiz generator, available at 2 in the morning, infinitely patient, never smug about your wrong answers. The key move, and this is the part people miss, is telling it to give you all the questions first and hold the answers until the end. Otherwise, it helpfully spoils itself, and you get the illusion of learning again, just faster. Feed it your messy notes. Ask for escalating difficulty, demand application questions, and suddenly you have a personalized practice exam built from your own class material. This is my favorite lab, because it converts your worst notes into your best study tool. The role of tutor who writes exam questions matters more than you think, because it pulls the model toward assessment-style thinking instead of friendly explaining. The context is your actual notes, typos, fragments, and all, which keeps every question tied to what your professor actually covered. The task asks for escalating difficulty, so you warm up before you get humbled. The format separates questions from the answer key, and the constraints enforce it, because a quiz that spoils itself is just a worksheet. Requiring 2 application questions is the secret weapon, since those are the ones that reveal whether you understand the process or just memorize the vocabulary. Now it is your turn. Pause the video and try this prompt yourself. You can copy the exact prompt from the lab guide below. If you want to skip ahead, use the chapter links at the bottom of the video or in the description. Notice how the escalation worked. Question 1 asked where glycolysis occurs. Easy confidence builder. By question 8, it was asking what happens to ATP yield when oxygen runs low, which your notes never stated directly but absolutely imply. That gap is exactly where exam points live. The answer, key separation, forced genuine retrieval. and the one-sentence explanations gave you correction without a lecture. The application constraint is why you got reasoning questions instead of 10 rounds of vocabulary bingo. Research on retrieval practice consistently shows self-testing outperforms rereading by wide margins, often around 50% better retention over a week. So the next time you feel the highlighter calling your name, remember, comfort and learning are usually sitting at different tables. Study smarter is a phrase people throw around, so here's what it actually means in practice. Use your own notes as source material, because generic quizzes test generic content, while your professor tests their lecture. Always hide the answer key, since retrieval only counts when your brain has to work for it. And insist on application questions, because recognizing a term and using an idea are two very different skills, and only one of them shows up on the exam. Now let's dive into Write with AI without cheating. You now have a repeatable system for turning chaos into a plan, notes into practice tests, and blank pages into real arguments that are genuinely yours. Grab the lab guide below, copy the prompts, share it with the roommate who is currently panicking about midterms, and drop your best prompt experiment in the comments so we can all steal it. Next question worth chasing. If ChatGPT can plan your semester in 90 seconds, what could it do with your entire 4-year degree?